So we are live, we are resuming our activities. Instead of presenting the wonderful CV of Renato, I think I'll tell everybody a bizarre story, how we met. So we have the fourth meeting of our work group at the ANPOF. There's the National Association of Postgraduate Studies and Philosophy in Brazil. And we are in the northeast of Brazil, in this beautiful coastal city, very hot weather, extremely hot weather. And it was the first day of our 3 days of meeting of our work group in a 5 days meeting. And I was there, I was like fixing the equipment, preparing the data show and the computers, stations for the AC, blah, blah, blah. And so I was just using surfboard shorts and flip-flops and a tank. And comes Renato. Renato's come in a tie, vest, full suit, very dripping wet, but so elegant. And he comes to me in my flip-flops and surfboard shorts, says, "Do you know where he is? A PhD professor, Gabriel Mugrabi." I said, "That's me, bro." So that's how we met. Okay, so without further ado, please, my brother Renato.
Thank you all very much. The second part of the story that Gabriel didn't tell is that the next day I went to give my first talk, my first presentation ever in shorts. And that was one of the happiest days in my academic life. I mean, going to an event and giving a talk in shorts, that was unthinkable for someone that comes from law, right? So for the law, shorts change everything and nothing, I guess, to paraphrase someone. Okay, so thank you all very much to be here. This is, I mean, thank you everyone that's watching through Zoom as well, but especially those of you that came from such faraway places to be here. And I mean, I can't say by name, but just to make an example, Adina, Marcel, I mean, all of you, Santiago, Jose, this is such a great effort that you all made to be here, and all the invited speakers from Brazil as well. It's an honor to be here. I feel like that kid that was promised to go to Disneyland, and then the pandemic started, and then 2 years later he gets to Disneyland. So this is a dream come true for me. This was a lot of work, especially for Gabriel. I helped a little bit, but this is the fun part. So I hope I don't disappoint you guys a lot. I will be talking today a little bit about neurolaw, and the pun is intended, free will on trial, and neuroscience, culpability, and free will beliefs. So I'm Renato. I'm from the Federal University of Minas Gerais. I teach philosophy of law, I teach neurolaw, neuroethics, and I'm at the Faculty of Law and the Neuroscience Research Program. And well, let's jumpstart to what we're here to. You're not. Peraí, mas it is.
No, what you have to do now, there's a button, so you have to stop sharing, then you put full screen, and then stop sharing it.
Okay, I stop share.
Stop share, set for full screen, and then stop, and then start sharing again.
Full screen.
The whole 6 bioethics meeting was like that. Everyone.
Okay. Is this all right? Okay. So I guess some of you already know this guy by now. I'm thinking about my students that have seen this case several times already. But for those of you that don't, this is Charles Whitman. Looks like a nice guy, right? Reading his newspaper with his dog. And he made the cover of the Time magazine in 1966, but for not so great a motive. What did he do? So this was apparently a very, very nice guy, nice neighbor, nice husband, nice son, ordinary guy, really, just nothing different about him. And one day he climbed up the tower at the center of the University of Texas in Dallas, or I guess it's Dallas, yeah. And in the campus, they have this huge tower. So he went up the tower and packed with a lot of guns and started shooting people down in the campus. The first person he shot was a pregnant woman. And then a lot of people came to help her, and he just started shooting everyone he could, I mean, arbitrarily. So in the end, he killed 15 people and wounded 33. This was a massacre. This was a terrible scene to everyone that witnessed it. And the United States was in shock. This, unfortunately, today, this is not something we've never heard of. And it seems like every month, unfortunately, we hear about something like this, especially and unfortunately in the United States, even though here in Brazil, we've had some cases as well. But in '66, this was very unprecedented and people were shocked and they did not know what happened. So it took more than 90 minutes, I think, before they could go up, climb up to the top of the tower and kill him. The police killed him. And so I ask you, and I've been asking this question to my students and in presentations for a long time, what do you guys think we should do? Okay, in terms of criminal law, criminal sentencing with a guy like Charles Whitman. Let's suppose we had caught him before he was killed. We had caught him alive. What would be the appropriate sentencing in a case like this? Anybody wants to try? Mateus? No? Yeah, that's one big question. The thing is, most people, when they hear about this, they say, all right, so this is a serial killer. This guy is a monster. He deserves to suffer every bit that he's made other people suffer, and terrible things should be done to this guy. Okay, this is a very common answer for a lot of people. We hear that a lot. A good bandit is a dead bandit. It's something we hear a lot in Brazil these days. Okay, let's not get into that right now. But there's more to this story of Charles Whitman. So what happened when they found out who he was? They immediately went to his house, and they found out that his mother and his wife, both lived with him, were also dead. And they found a letter. And this was a very weird letter. I can't seem to, okay. And in this letter, he said a lot of interesting things and tragic things, I'd say. Like I can't understand myself. I'm not myself. I've been having a lot of weird thoughts that I don't recognize as my own, some violent feelings. I've been to a doctor. He gave me an Advil or something and said he couldn't help. I told him that I sometimes felt like killing people and shooting people that I didn't know. I don't know what to do. I've been fighting this turmoil, but it's no use, and I can't do it anymore. So it's irresistible, this urges, these feelings. So I decided to kill my wife and my mom. I love them very much. I just don't want them to suffer. And the end of his letter, it always strikes me the most. He says, okay, so he knows leaving the house to kill as many people as he can, and that he'll probably be killed in the process. And he said, if my health insurance is still valid after what I'm going to do, please take half of it and pay my debts, and the rest of it, please give it to an institution that does research on brain, so that other people don't suffer what I'm suffering. So two things here. First, he did already had an intuition that something very wrong was going on in his brain. So he could make this distinction that, all right, so in this machinery, something is not good and not working. But what I always find weird, and of course there's something wrong going on, because this guy is not worried about being known as a serial killer, but he's worried about his debts, right? He's saying, okay, take my health insurance and pay my debts. Okay, so I'm gonna die a serial killer, but not someone that owns money to anyone. It's his moral thinking was completely out of line. And what happened is they did look into his brain, and then they found a huge tumor, the size of a quarter, pressing his amygdala. And of course, the amygdala is a very, I'd say it's one of the worst places you could choose to have a tumor, right? So it's directly implicated in your emotional responses, processing, the fight or flight instinct, the fear, anxiousness instinct. And so it is, okay, there is work being done with primates that they intentionally made, they damaged the amygdala, and monkeys, they stopped caring for their babies and had severe violent behavior. So it's a bad place to have a tumor. So the thing is, after knowing about this tumor, people completely change. I mean, not everyone, not completely all the time, but a lot of people change drastically their intuitions about what to do with Charles Whitman. Okay, so now what I normally get when I ask people, what should we do with Charles Whitman? Should we get him alive? And additionally, if we could operate and take away this tumor, and this guy would go back to having a normal life. So what should we do with him now? He still killed 15 people, wounded 33, 17 people if you count his mother and his wife. And a lot of people change their intuitions, right? A lot of people say, okay, so this guy did not have free will, he couldn't do otherwise, and he did what he did because of his brain and because of his tumor. And that is a very good question. It seems like a question that was designed by a philosopher of law that just started studying neuroscience to ask why we punish people. The question of why we punish people, it's one of the most important and old questions in philosophy of law. Okay, so there are several answers, and philosophy has come up with almost all of them. And we've been discussing this ever since Socrates and the sophists, right? Socrates famously discussed this in Cretan, this famous dialogue where his student said, let's run away, you shouldn't be be killed because of what you do. And he said, no, I'm not leaving. And okay, so this is the thing. So let's talk about this. People should be punished, criminally punished, because they deserve to be punished. Should they suffer in a penitentiary? Should they pay a penitence? That's where the word penitentiary comes from. The idea is that people should, because of retributivistic motives, they should pay for what they did, to have the harm and the evil they did retributed to them. This is a very, very old reason and fundament for punishment. It's actually, I think it's the oldest one, and it's been philosophically defended and argued by famously by Immanuel Kant. And there is different ways to think about this, but basically the idea is the argument goes, there is no utilitarian purpose in punishing someone. It's just retributivistic. If you had people living in an island and everyone decided to leave this island and go live somewhere else, they still would have to execute the last murder that was in his prisons, because that would be the just thing to do, even though executing him wouldn't contribute to any future motives, not, preventing future crime, not resocializing anything, just because that's the just thing to do. I think that's completely bogus. Okay, for a lot of reasons, and we'll get into that later. But there are some other reasons to punish people that do not involve retributivism. First of them, resocialization, right? It's also kind of a paradox to resocialize people by taking them out of society, right? So we can talk about that a little bit later as well. And I don't think that's basically something that works so well. But it still makes more sense than pure retribution. It's just backward looking and has no, okay. Well, there are several reasons for punishment. The last one of them, not the last one of them, but the most famous of them, together with retribution and together with resocialization, it's taking dangerous people out of society. It's, let's keep people that present a danger to society away from society because they present a danger in themselves objectively. And this has been very criticized by a lot of legal scholars and criminalists, because this opens some dangerous doors. Okay, predicting who is to become a danger to society and who is not can be something very dangerous. And we've had in history sometimes this been used for political reasons, for societal reasons. People that are not welcome in this society, that are different, they're just put away. Okay, so but the thing is, all of these reasons, they are dependent on what you think of free will. Okay, free will beliefs impact our reasons to punish. For example, it seems to me that our free will beliefs are directly linked with the acceptance or the non-acceptance of retributivistic notions. Okay, the more we think about this, we judge someone to be a proper means of retributivistic punishment because there is this a priori thinking that he could have done otherwise. He had this kind of metaphysical free will that makes him an appropriate target for this kind of punishment. The other reasons for punishment, say the resocialization or the taking away people that are dangerous from society, they do not need free will to be justifiable. Okay, so this is from Beerbohm. We all, and this argument he made, a lot of years ago, but it just became much more real. Okay, so Beerbohm says it's clearly acceptable to take some person's, some of the people's rights to walk around free if they present a danger to society, even though they're not guilty of anything. Okay, and a lot of people would be crazy about this. Okay, so this is basic human rights and everything. And now we've all experienced being on a lockdown for a year and a half without being able to walk around without any guilt of our own because of the pandemics, right? So it is a much more vivid reason for, containing certain rights that reason. Well, so let me give a clearer look. What is my time like? It's just, Gabriel, it's okay, all right. It's just because I don't have my chronometer here. This is what I will be talking, the argument I'll be making. First, I will talk a little bit about what is neurolaw, and then I will talk about some common arguments in the free will and the law debate. And the first one is that neuroscience does not disprove free will, and B, that even if it did, it wouldn't matter because the law does not presuppose free will. Okay, so then the counter arguments is Libet-Stiles experiments don't disprove free will, but there are several other reasons to doubt it, or at least to require an entirely different meaning to the concept. And B, some legal systems make direct reference to free will, and most others, at least logically, imply it. So we will be talking about free will beliefs and free will skepticism and the law. And the last part, I will be talking that free will beliefs matter for the law. Okay, and what's the rationale here? A, free will beliefs impact behaviors, and B, behaviors matter for the law. The conclusion is obvious. Free will beliefs matter for the law. Okay, and to end, free will beliefs impact legal decision-making. And legal decision-making, it's not only what judges do. Legal decision-making or decision-making that has legal consequences comes in several flavors. So for once, there are several studies that do show that they make mock trials, and they show that free will beliefs, they influence how jurors behave, right? And so if you manipulate free will beliefs and people start believing less in free will, a more mechanistic view of human behavior makes people less punitivistic and less retributivistic as well. Free will beliefs influence how legislators behave. And this is very clear in Brazil today. There is an outcry for more punishment from a certain group in society, and some people want more extreme penalties, more extreme punishment, and you will undoubtedly see that this kind of thinking goes hand in hand with attribution of free will, and in such cases to those that do want to punish. There is a question if they attribute free will because they want to punish, or if they want to punish because they attribute free will. There's this theory of motivated free will belief by Corey Clark and colleagues. We'll be talking a little bit about this as well. It is a good question, one that we should think about. And in the end, also judges, because if we talk about free will beliefs influencing the law, we should think and we should study and investigate how judges are affected by this. Okay, this is a main problem because we have done a lot of tests with lay people, and we see clearly that we can influence people's judgments of free will, if free will exists or not. And we can influence their behavior their punitivistic behavior, but that's not so clear in judges, okay? So this is something we will try, it's on our radar. Professor Marcel here has done a beautiful study with judges as well, and the results are not, well, his results are that it's possible to manipulate and to influence judges' beliefs about free will, but that apparently has no behavioral consequences in their judging. Okay, now it's not clear if that's because of legal training, if that's because of legal practice, or some automatism that judges, okay, so you've been a judge for a long time, so you've already judged these sentences a lot of times, and you enter in, system one, and that's it. So we'll be talking a little bit about that soon. So first, what is neurolaw? At first, years and years ago, people would think of neurolaw just as the application of neuroscience to the practice of law. And that is one important part of neurolaw, of course. But neurolaw is actually much, much, much more than this. And I'm a bit, it's a bit weird to be saying this with Professor Dina here and right after Professor Chandler, but I have to disagree with the definition that Professor Chandler gives of neurolaw. She makes a very nice distinction. I mean, famously, Professor Dina has, defended that neuroethics is the ethics of neuroscience, the neuroscience of ethics, and I'm completely agree with that. But when we go to neurolaw, I think we need a third distinction, because if we take neurolaw to be the neuroscience of law, or of the neuroscience of legal decision-making and of law itself, and the law of neuroscience, we will still be missing this neuroscience in law, right? So I would argue that we need 3 parts in neurolaw. One, basically, it's the neuroscience of law. It's how neuroscience impacts law itself, and traditional legal concepts. And for example, this discussion, free will, is free will a part of our legal theories, and does it stand as it is? Do our legal theories, our traditional legal theories, stand as they are, given what we know about free will today, or about neuroscience today and its impacts on free will? That would be a question of the neuroscience of law. And of course, all the studies that study legal and judicial decision-making. The second part would be the law of neuroscience. That would be the legal regulation of neuroscience experimentation, and the application of what neuroscience discovers, and techniques and medicines and so ever. And but a third part is, of course, how neuroscience shows up in court. So do we accept neuroscience, fMRI, as a lie detection method, for example? Do we accept, neuropsychological tests for capacity, for juvenile responsibility? This is all neuroscience in the law as a means of proof. And that is a very consequential, if not the most interesting part of neurolaw for me, at least. I really like the neuroscience of law, as the neuroscience of ethics is also so fascinating. But this is a paper that has just been published, last month, on neurolaw and the neuroscience of free will, a very brief overview. So this is just a little review about the field. And this is my greatest pride in this field, the neurolaw lab that we just started about a year ago. And Laboratório de Neurodireito, LAND is a nice acronym there. And this beautiful art was made by Victoria here. And we started this Neuro Law Lab right after I came back from Belgium. And this is just a sample of projects that are underway. We have several other ideas that are not underway yet, but will be soon. But I just brought the projects that are underway, so you might know what we are doing, what kind of research we are doing. And I'd really like to thank all the students and other professors and other researchers that are in the lab. We have people from the law, sciences of the state, from neuroscience, from biology, from computational modeling. So we have a really nice crowd, and I'm really happy to lead the lab. Evolutionary psychology as well. So right now we have several projects, and these are the ones that are effectively underway. So retributivism, punitivism, free will beliefs, and legal training and education, judicial decision-making, human versus machine decision-making in the legal context. So let me talk a little bit about this. This first one is a continuation of the research we started in Ghent with Marcel. And we will be looking into the impact of legal training and legal education on this free will beliefs impact on behavior. So if people are trained in law, if they have a legal education, and if they have a legal training, do their free will beliefs impact their decisions, or don't they? So that is a big question, because it's very consequential. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to train, we're going to test first semester law students, and then last semester law students, and then judges, to see what is happening here. Okay, to see if we can manipulate their free will beliefs, and if that leads to different justifications for punishment and for legal consequences. Okay, so this is the first one. The second one is judicial decision-making. We will be looking at how judges make decisions. One very important thing we are discussing in Brazil right now is the guarantee judge, o juiz de garantias. What is this? What happens here in Brazil now is that the judge that first analyzes the case and that gives the first decision. Okay, so if you need an urgent decision, you ask a judge, okay, so I have a right and I have an urgency here. So you have to give me a very fast decision, even without hearing the other part. And this judge then goes on to he decides whether he will give it or not, and then he will keep on the case. And in the end, this guy is normally very invested in the first decision he gave. And we are trying to look statistically at this lock-in effect. This is almost a confirmation bias, right? And we're trying to see if the idea of having a judge, also, if you have one judge that is conducting the investigation, right? This judge normally gets biased when he has to decide. So having two judges, one to conduct the process and to give the first sentences, there are decisions that are urgent, and then have another judge to look at the whole thing and then decide, it's a very good idea. It unbiases the process. But we are having a lot of trouble right now in Brazil to implement this. Not only because people can't understand the science, and I think that is the smallest problem, but because it goes against a lot of interests from a lot of people. So, I mean, if it were just to the science would be already decided. And then the third one, it's also very consequential because we are implementing more and more artificial intelligence in the legal system in Brazil, especially for intermediary decisions and fast decisions. And a lot of people are very have a lot of problems with AI deciding anything. So we will be talking about opacity, we will be talking about bias in humans and in machine decision making, and etc. That is something important being discussed in the United States and all over the world as well. So another thing is ideology. We want to know how to conceptualize and measure it. We need good instruments. The big problem here is that instruments that work well in the United States and Europe don't really translate to Brazil or to Brazilian political system. That is a huge problem. If we take the normal political science ideology tests that we use, that it's been used all over the world. In the United States, for example, where the bulk of this research is, they don't translate too well for Brazil, even though now it's been getting closer because of the polarization and the Trump-like politics we've been seeing. And so 2022, we're having a presidential election in Brazil, for those that don't know. And so there's also this fake news and motivated thinking initiative. And there's another group that's trying to debunk the idea of lie detection, at least for now. It's very controversial. And the thing is, they are studying and they're proposing ways to show that, I mean, there's no scientific consensus, minimum consensus to use this kind of scientific lie detection. We haven't read a SEMRAL case in Brazil yet, so function fMRIs or not haven't been used yet haven't been proposed. I think they wouldn't be accepted as well. So neuro rights, we have a law in Brazil that protects data. We don't have like in Chile, for example, neuro rights initiative that is constitutional. We have a law that gives important protection and different protection to neuro data. And so there's also evolutionary origins of the law in the state, and free will beliefs and the readiness potential. We are trying to replicate in some other terms, some work done by Marcel as well, trying to mitigate free will beliefs or to exacerbate free will beliefs and to see if that has an impact on the readiness potential. The argument is neuroscience does not disprove free will, those arguments from before. Okay, I have this article. I do recommend, strongly recommend this article from Brass, Fustenberg, and Mel. Why neuroscience does not disprove free will. Also, this one from Aaron and Adina on tics. What is the readiness potential? And also the original article from Sugar that I really it really impacted me. I was telling Peter about this. I'm not dogmatic at all. I love to change my mind, and when my students heard me talk about this, they wouldn't believe it, because I had been for such a long time a proponent of Libet as the killer of free will, and I would use Libet as with such a rhetorical impact. And they said, okay, so how come you have doubts about Libet not disproving free will? I said, well, I changed my mind. And I mean, that was really liberating. So I do like to change my mind, and that was a nice moment for me. And I mean, all of these 3 articles I recommend both, all of them. But even though Libet doesn't do anything for me anymore, I still think there is good reasons to question the idea of free will. And there are several reasons, at least in the traditionally metaphysically loaded sense, that we should question free will. And I was telling Peter this yesterday. There is this Portuguese poet, Fernando Pessoa. And in one of his poems, he's talking about Spinoza. Of course, this is a poet, but he's also a philosopher. And he says, okay, so if nature is God, why not call it nature? Why call it God? And I do make a similar argument for free will. If free will is executive functions, if free will is imagination, if free will is the capacity to plan or to you know, envision some kind of future and to take steps to that, or if it is if it is, you know, listening to reasons or being guided by reasons, why not call it that? Why use this term free will that is obviously metaphysically loaded? It has at least 1,500 years of dualistic history behind it. I do not mind if we are talking about a non-dualistic and not magic free will, then we can, I mean, we can talk, and I think we're on the same terms. Okay. Then our discussion is a discussion on language. Okay, and I can totally see eye to eye if we are talking about a naturalistic or a non-dualistic free will. And I mean, if you're not talking about miracles or magic, and if you agree that the universe is somewhat deterministic or indeterministic, but not magic, then I think we're on the same terms. And I think there's very good reasons. And I mean, it's hard to talk after Peter and Jennifer, because Peter just talked about hard luck, but I still think that hard incompatibilism and hard luck undermine in some way the classic idea of free will. And of course, dualism is incompatible with the law of physics. I mean, we can go into that, but I think you all know the argument. The brain is still a biological mechanism, however complex that is, and the word is mechanism. I know it's a strong word, but that's exactly what I want to convey. And there is no homunculus, no causal gap, no controller. And I mean, even if it's criterial, Peter, it's still no homunculus, no causal gap. And I think that would take out of the room the kind of free will idea I'd like to argue against. Okay, all other kinds of free will that can be seen in a naturalistic, even emergent view of the brain, they're okay. So last one, even if neuroscience disproved free will, it wouldn't matter, because the law does not presuppose free will. This has been advanced by Stephen Morse, for example, by Thomas More. So I'm 2 more minutes. Okay, so I strongly contend that as well, because so Morris says that even if free will didn't exist, that wouldn't change anything, and I don't agree with that. Why? Because some legal systems, like Germany, for example, they expressly they make explicit reference to free will, like German civil law. Okay, Brazilian law does not make reference to free will in these terms, but they make reference to the ability to do otherwise. They make reference to conscious will. So even though they don't use the term free will, the idea of free will is implicitly accepted in our legal system. And now, more and more, following the steps of Chile, a lot of countries are thinking about positing a right to free will. And our good friend, José Manuel Muñoz, has written a beautiful text that has stated clearly, okay, you can't posit that people have a right to free will without first saying what free will is. And that is a very, very hard discussion, as we all know. So, but putting that into one's constitution, that is a problem, to say the least. Okay, so Hosmer, and okay, I just want to end with this. To put it syllogistically, okay, as philosophers often like, free will beliefs, they impact behaviors, okay? And behaviors matter for the law. Actually, the law is the object, not the law, the behavior is the object of law. In jurisprudence, the science of law, what we study, okay, is human behavior. The law cannot be understood properly if we don't understand that the law is the product of human behavior, legislators' behavior. If it is intended to control human behavior and to guide human behavior, and it is only applied, it is only made concrete by human behavior. So human behavior is very important for the law. And free will beliefs, they definitely impact human behavior. So free will beliefs matter for the law, and that is something we really need to understand, how free will beliefs impact judges and punitivism and all this kind of things. And this is the research we did. Unfortunately, the pandemics didn't let us finish, and hopefully we will have the time to go back and finish it. Thank you all very much. Sorry for the erratic sometimes, but I think I could make myself understandable at least a little bit, and it's been great. Thank you all very much.
A big round of applause. Alô. Som no microfone, no outro. Esse aqui, ó. Pode levantar o canal. Opa. Big round of applause for Renato. Questions? Okay.
Thanks for your talk. Like, I wanted to ask you, do you think it's possible to have a law without metaphysical concepts? Because I think that that's sort of like the sort of big scale abstract problem that you're discussing is sort of that. Like, if you have some sort of like poorly defined metaphysical concept, then law becomes like quite difficult to do. So like, can you maybe talk a little bit about that? And like, because I think that, okay, like if free will, because you said things which are also a bit contradictory, because you said that you found that it could, but it didn't change anything, right? Like, I think that that's what you said in the beginning, that there was a difference, but you just couldn't find it where.
In what, sorry? In
the judges, right? So with that in mind, like how would you replace these metaphysical concepts for other ways of measuring whatever it is that they're trying to measure when we use them?
So let me be clear. This is a philosophical question, of course, starting with what is metaphysics. So if you tell me that physicalism, for example, is a metaphysical way of thinking, all right, then if you tell me that every single way of looking at the world of ontology, it's a metaphysical view, so it's impossible to have any view of the law without metaphysics. What I was implying is that we have a dualistic metaphysics, okay, in our legal system, and that is what it's not granted by our neuroscientific view of human action and human cognition today, right? To me, I mean, as I said, I'm very open to changing my mind, but as much as I've researched, studied, and seen, I believe that we can't hold this kind of views anymore and still be scientifically sound.
No.
So,
no. Although I had like a sort of like accusatory tone, I'm in agreement with you. I just wanted to maybe that you could say, like, how would you replace them, or thought about that in that sense?
Okay, how would I replace the dualistic view?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the same way you...
Directly in law.
No. Okay, so I can share it here now, but there is this very interesting paper. Santiago in the last event said that it had aged very well to Thomas and not very well to Thomas Nadelhofer and my dismay, I might say. But it's for the law, neuroscience changes nothing and everything. Joshua Green and Jonathan Cohen, and they have said, and I quite agree, that the neuroscientific view will not change the law directly in a revolutionary way from one day to the other. And that will happen with gradual change in how we understand human behavior. Okay, so a more scientifically or neuroscientifically informed way of thinking about human actions, human agency, human behavior will bring us to a new understanding of human responsibility. And then we might get retributivism out of the question and thinking more utilitarian ways, more pragmatic ways. I would say not utilitarian. Utilitarian is a very dangerous philosophical term. He uses the deep pragmatism notion in his philosophy. I do think we will have gradual changes, and I mean it won't be a revolution. But this that we are doing here, I would never believe we would be doing if you tell me
in the 90s
10, 20 years ago when I started doing this, I wouldn't have any students, and now a lot of people are interested in neuroscience and law and open to this idea.
I have a very short question,
Yes.
but it's a clarification that it's very important to me. You said that, for example, the German law talks directly about free will. It's five Willen is there. And in Brazil, we talk about conscious will. Why do you think that mentioning free will literally is somehow a less metaphysical commitment than saying conscious will? Conscious will is quite heavy as well.
No, for me it's the same. I was trying to respond to Moore's argument. Morse says that free will doesn't matter for the law, okay? And I say, well, it does explicitly in some countries, in Chile, where it's in the constitution, in Germany, whereas in their civil law, it's written there. But I do believe it is a foundation for all the other, not all the other law systems in the world, but the Occidental, the West law. It has this basic principle, be it the common law, be it the Roman civil law. There is this basis for legal responsibility. That is the idea of, I mean, give it or take, free will, as you would have it, and if not explicitly, at least implicitly. And I see a lot of cases and a lot of instantiations of this in law.
Okay, there's a question for our friend Marcelo Fishborn. There's also a invited speaker that's online on Zoom. He asks, thanks, Renato. What would you say about attempts to define free will as a capacity required for the exemplia gratia, blame and praise to be appropriate responses to immoral and moral behavior? And then he follows up. If we grant that those responses are appropriate, oftentimes, as most people think they are, then free will also becomes significantly deflated, maybe less metaphysical. And a second, if I am allowed, do you think current science shows that we are never able to do otherwise than we do?
Okay, thanks, Marcelo. And I have okay, I really appreciate Marcelo's work, and I knew when you said the question was from him that it would be something in this line. And thanks a lot, Marcelo. Okay, I'm from a very different view from Marcelo on this. I do believe in this initiative that he strongly confronts, that is the justice without retributivism, and all this Greg Caruso and Marta Forkhart and Derek Pereboom, for example. And what I'm not sure if science does disprove free will. Actually, I am sure it doesn't. But I have a philosophical argument that I really want to advance. I do not think that we will have a scientific, definite proof against free will. But the scientific worldview will take us to such an understanding. Okay, it's not going to be a silver bullet. We will add on every time. Again, I was talking to Peter yesterday, and he said, okay, so we can account for 50% of human behavior with genetic factors, 10% with, environment, and then 40% we can't. And I said, well, maybe we can't yet. And maybe free will is just all the influences and causes we don't know yet. And well, maybe I'm wrong as well. I'm normally wrong, but I think it's a way. And philosophically, either the world is deterministic or it is indeterministic. I do not see a strong free will surviving any of these scenarios. So we can think about a deflated free will, but I do strongly think that the term, it's very loaded. It's historically loaded, metaphysically, dualistically loaded, and we should better do away with it because it brings a lot of confusion. Let's talk about all these other things, being an appropriate place for blame or for, okay, but
any other questions? Adina, Santiago.
Thank you for the talk. It was great. And I don't disagree with anything, but I wanted to just point out that there was another reason for punishment that you didn't talk about that I think is really important, which is deterrence.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
But I think that you're right, that deterrence also is independent of whether or not we have free will, right? So the overall argument, I totally agree with.
Thank you for this. It crossed my mind because I made a similar presentation for colleagues at the economy faculty, and I have is this me? Yeah. Okay. So I have a friend, very good friend, a professor in economy, Professor Lysia, and she said, Renato, you forgot about deterrence. And I thought, well, I'm sorry, Lysia, this is just so obvious that it didn't even occur to me that I was forgetting it. But of course it is. The first motive would be deterrence, right? You offer a counter motive for people to act in this way and not the other. But this is of course the first function, not of punishment applied, but punishment before it was applied. And here I was thinking about what to do with someone that has already committed a crime. So that's why I forgot about it, but thank you. It's perfect, exactly. Completely agree.
Thank you, Renato. Ooh.
You're welcome.
So I really like the way you introduced the Charles Whitman case. And I didn't know about the letter. And there was something there in the letter that struck me, and I want to ask you about that. So you can gather from the letter that there are, lots of things that are going wrong for Whitman. But he says at some point, and this just reminded me of Peter's talk earlier today about the distinction between picking and choosing. So he deliberates hardly whether he should kill his wife or not. So he sees that as an issue that deserves to be chosen or not chosen. But then he says, you know, one line after that, he did it for no reason. So I wonder if that's what's actually wrong with Whitman. If that's it in the end, what do you think should exculpate him? Is the fact that he cannot, persevere in. He knows this is an issue that needs to be chosen. It's a matter of choosing and finding reasons, and he ends up deciding in a way that's completely for no reason, something that's as decisive and as important as that. So I was wondering if you very quickly moved to the neural data, but I want you to say a little bit more about the letter, about how the letter serves to or not to justify the verdict of acquittal or non-guilty or some sort of insanity defense. I mean, what do you think about the case?
Okay, there is this thing in law that is called the "my brain made me do it" defense, right? And it has been argued that if finding a neural cause, a cause in the brain for your behavior could be an exculpate, could be a cause to exculpate you, no one would be ever guilty of anything, right? So there is that. The thing is, when I say that free will is the basis, even the implicit basis of our legal system, I have an anecdotal but true idea of this, because every time I tell people that my research is on free will and that I'm not sure if free will holds, people say, so we're gonna what, open up the jails and let everybody out, right? And that is what people think. And of course, that's not that is not why we should do it, right? And okay, so the thing is, finding a brain cause in a behavior cannot be a reason for exculpating anyone. Finding an abnormal brain cause that can be extirpated, that can be operated on, might be a cause, right? And it is very hard to talk about this kind of legal responsibility on a basis of scientific certainty, okay? And you should go case by case. For example, the pedophile, this is a very famous case. This guy, about 40 years old, starts having pedophilic thoughts and collects photos, and then starts making improper moves on his daughter-in-law and others, and they find out that he has an right orbitofrontal tumor, very, very big one, and they take it off, and this guy goes back to normal until 1-2 years later, when he starts developing the same behavior, and they say, oh, so this guy was a pedophile all the time. And no, they find out that the tumor had grown again, and they take off the tumor, and this guy is completely back to normal. So is this guy should this guy go to jail for this? I sincerely don't believe so, because I do think that there is no point. What would be the point in sending this guy to jail after you've taken this tumor out, right? Thinking in a rational motive for sentencing and not in a retributivistic one, that would make no sense. And especially because no one else could say, all right, so I'm going to be a pedophile, and if they catch me, I'm going to say I have a tumor in my brain. That's not an excuse. People will. So that would not serve, letting him go would not serve as a deterrent, an anti-deterrent to anyone. So please.
So I want to ask about the, oh.
Okay, all right.
So I was trying to
Very
get at
fast.
that last bit, that what you said. So if you remove the tumor, presumably there's no reason to send this person to jail.
Yes,
Okay, and that's because by removing the tumor, you would change this person's behavior.
yes,
And probably the behavior would be changed because by removing the tumor, in part, you are changing the way this people is thinking and reasoning.
yes.
So if that letter kind of captures his reasoning, what bit of that letter would be changed? There's all the conflict that he has, for sure that will go away. But what bit of that, of his reasoning?
I imagine his reasoning would be very different if he didn't have the tumor. I mean, but we can just speculate on that. But
Yeah, that was.
I mean, when normal people without a tumor normally don't say, "Oh, okay, so I have no reason not to kill my wife, so I'm going to kill her anyway."
But they can, I mean, they can be free and ponder, well, I mean, should I kill this person, yes or no?
And if he says yes, then the deterrence is not strong enough, and that's it. And so I guess we can keep on this later. Okay, thank you all very much.